Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. 2 firefighters are dead. Another was injured after a shooter opened fire as they tried to put out a wildfire on Canfield Mountain in Coeur, Idaho, Sunday afternoon. Now, this incident, it has made national news. And this morning, Governor Brad Little ordered flags lowered to half-staff to honor the firefighters who were killed. And Idaho Senator Jim Risch spoke about what happened on the Senate floor this morning.
2 of North Idaho's brave firefighters were ambushed and murdered, and 1 is in serious to critical condition. This evil attack on the people who dedicate their lives to protecting and serving our communities is despicable, and it's not Idaho. I ask my Senate colleagues to join me, Senator Crapo, and all Idahoans in praying for the victims, their loved ones, and all who have been affected by this reprehensible act.
Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris says crews were on the scene for about 30 minutes before the attack started.
This was a total ambush. These firefighters did not have a chance.
Now, the suspected shooter was found dead later Sunday next to a firearm. Now, police do believe the suspect started the fire and he did act alone. So here to give us an update on what happened is Doug Nadvornik. He is news director with Spokane Public Radio, and he is joining us now to talk more about this. Doug, I know it has been a busy day for you, so we really appreciate you taking time to talk with us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Gemma.
And I want all of our listeners to know we are taping this live at noon today. So I know we re-air this at 6 p.m. We re-air this at 8 p.m. So details could be changing by the time you listen if you are not listening to us live at noon. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. With that said, Doug, take us back to yesterday afternoon. How did all of this start?
Well, so there was somebody apparently had spotted smoke in the mountains, Canfield Mountain, who's within the city of Coeur d'Alene. In fact, it's an area where people can go up and hike. Apparently, there was smoke up there. Someone had spotted it, called it in to either the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, the local 911. And as the firefighters got there, and one of the fire chiefs said they had sent 3 rigs up there, Coeur d'Alene Fire and the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue. Once they got up there, they started scouting around as to how they were going to attack this fire, and then shots started coming. And from what we hear, the shots were not coming from just one area, but it felt like they were coming from competing directions. And so the investigators were not exactly sure whether there was one gunman or 2 or even as many as 4, as Bob Norris talked about during his early press conference. But anyway, 2 of the firefighters were hit and killed, I think apparently immediately or very close to immediately. Another one was hit. They managed to get the 3rd body off of the mountain and send it to the local hospital, Kootenai Health. He was then, I think, sent to Spokane and underwent surgery and is apparently stable. The other 2, they managed to get the bodies off. So there was apparently a little while where there was some sort of silence. Bob Norris says that the federal agencies were able to get some helicopters or a helicopter up in the air. They were trying to figure out where the person that they had pinged, and they first, around 3:15 in the afternoon, they had spotted an active cell phone in that area. So they were trying to ping in on where this person was. I think by the time they got it, it was about 5 o'clock. They managed to find the area. By that time, they had found the gunman laying on the ground with a firearm nearby.
So, Doug, as you said, 3 firefighters were shot, 2 of them fatal, and 1 is still in the hospital. Do we know anything about these firefighters? I mean, you said because certain fire engines were called to the scene. So do we know if they were with the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department? Were they with Kootenai County? Has any information about those firefighters been released at this point?
So of the two that we know, one was from the Coeur d'Alene Fire Department, one was from the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue. The injured firefighter was also from the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Agency. Officials weren't ready to put out names yet. Maybe we'll find those out today, maybe tomorrow. I think right now the community is in a pretty big sense of shock. It is a
Hmm.
small community, and I'm reminded of about 10 years ago, a Coeur d'Alene Fire Department or a Coeur d'Alene Police Department officer was shot and killed, and they recently celebrated the 10th anniversary of that. So this is a community that reveres its first responders, and so I'm sure there's a pretty strong sense of trying to wrap their arms metaphorically around the families that are involved, and just to
Yeah.
try to make sure that they know that they're loved and cared for.
And as you mentioned, Doug, I mean, this had to have been so scary for so many folks in the area. You said Canfield Mountain is in Coeur d'Alene. It's a popular hiking area. When I was listening to Bob Norris in his news conference yesterday, one of the things he said was there may still be people on that mountain, right? Can you talk to us about that? Because there was a shelter in place order for that area, correct?
Correct. I think they were able to get uh, kind of an alert system out so that people who were on the mountain had the ability to understand that, maybe we better get off. Norris was talking about the fact that um, from the information they were able to gather, that they were able to find out that it was just one person rather than several. So while they were hurrying people off the mountain, they were trying to figure out, are there more people out there who are shooting, that
Hmm.
people who are out here are in danger? And I think it took them an hour or two before they figured out that that probably was not the case, and that the one person who they found was likely the lone person involved in this.
So, Doug, you mentioned though that they did find the alleged shooter. He is deceased, and they found a weapon next to him. But before we get to that, can you once again? I believe you said that they were able to kind of ping his cell phone location, right? And that's how they were
Right.
able to get to the shooter because this is a rugged area. I mean, it's not necessarily an easy area to to be investigating. I would think.
Right. Apparently, from what I gather from what Bob Norris was saying, that they had whether a helicopter, I don't know if there were drones involved in all this, but I got the sense that that was where they figured out where this person might have been. So that's probably what I can say about that. Another thing
Okay,
they
well,
had to
do
worry about was the fact that they had a fire burning. Whether this person said it or not, it was initially called in as a very small fire, estimated at about a half an acre. But the fact they weren't able to get to this fire meant that it was growing. So they're also worried about people who might live in the area and whether or not they might have to evacuate their homes. So there was not just the people who were hiking on the mountain, but it's also the people who
mm,
live nearby who were in danger as well. But they dropped after a couple of hours. They said um, they were able to drop that shelter in place. So they've obviously got enough of a handle on it that it wasn't a huge deal. We were trying to wonder, were they able to drop retardant or something on it, but I don't think that was the case.
hmm. You mentioned the mood in Coeur d'Alene right now, Doug. It has got to be just so almost, in shock, I would think. Have you been able to talk to any local residents? I mean, anything like that, how people are starting to maybe wrap their heads around this a little bit.
I've not been in Coeur d'Alene. I had a reporter there, but I think one thing that is illustrative of this is that by the time the bodies were taken and put into a hearse or whatever vehicle it was at Coeur d'Alene, they were taken to Kootenai Health, probably declared dead there. They were then taken, put onto I-90. There's 20 miles distance between Coeur d'Alene and
Hmm.
Spokane. And as this vehicle's taking these bodies to Spokane, there were fire department vehicles, there were police department vehicles, and others who had created essentially a long cordon along I-90 as they followed them into Spokane as the bodies were taken to, I believe, the Spokane County Medical Examiner's office. I think that's what the pictures on TV were showing, is that that's where most of these vehicles were. But that also just shows you kind of the that sense of camaraderie that first responders have, whether you're a police department, you still your fire department folks are your comrades as well. So that to me showed the fact that you had maybe a mile long cordon, and that's just my guess as to how long it was,
Mhm.
as to how high esteem that these men were held in.
So I am assuming the investigation is still going on. Doug, take us through what you know so far in what's next in this investigation.
So one of the worries was where this gentleman was. Um, there was a fire in the nearby area. And so by the time they found the
Hmm.
body, they figured the fire's close enough that we have to get this body off. And so there's the worry that are we disturbing the crime scene? And Bob Norris twice used the word scooped up the body. And I think it was just his way of saying we had to get out of there pretty quickly. And we know it's not a perfect crime scene where all the evidence is preserved so that we can go through it. So I think that's probably one of the issues is that they're not going to have as much evidence as they had hoped. And the fact that there's nobody there, unless they can find a manifesto or something that this person left behind, they have a lot of questions as to why this person did what he did. And so that's, I'm sure, going to last for quite a while. We were told that there were police officers, I think, who stayed overnight up there. Now that it's light, maybe they've got a better chance of getting things. So that's going to be one of the things. I think another of the things is, are they going to identify the slain firefighters? When are we going to find that? I know that other media outlets are releasing the name of the gunman. We're not going to do that until we're not going to release that name until it's officially released. So there are lots of things going on. And plus, there's just the whole community starting the healing process. So there's a lot's going on in Coeur d'Alene right now.
Hmm. Any word if Bob Norris will be holding another news conference anytime soon?
We are hoping that he will because we'd like to know the name of the person as much as anybody. And if enough people are asking, then maybe he will say it's worth us doing that. So um, cross our fingers. We will be sure to let everybody know once we find out.
Well, Doug, I just so appreciate you taking time to talk with us. As I mentioned, I know how busy you have been, how your entire department has been covering this from yesterday to today and continuing to cover this. So I do hope you and your reporters also take some time to get some rest. So, but thank you for taking time today to talk with us.
Thank you, Gemma.
We've been speaking with Doug Nadavornik. He is the news director with Spokane Public Radio. We've been talking about just this senseless shooting in Coeur d'Alene that left 2 firefighters dead. Another one is recovering in the hospital. Now, Doug and his organization has decided not to release the name of the alleged shooter, as he just mentioned to us. With that said, CNN is reporting, as well as ABC News is reporting, that a law enforcement official has identified the alleged shooter as a 20-year-old, Wes Rowley. We will, of course, have more information on this incident on All Things Considered this afternoon, so be sure to tune in there as well. And as I mentioned, we are live at noon right now, so if you are listening at a later date, this information might be out of date as it will continue to develop as the day and the weeks go on. And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Thanks so much for listening. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you were going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.